The schedule. You never know what can be renegotiated.
That's true.
You can create a buzz on Twitter by demanding more SEC this morning.
I was going to say it was going to be, I will send that tweet out. If we get 500 retweets, we'll continue to do the show. I don't know if people like us enough to get 500
And I don't think you even have the power to make that call.
I don't think so either. No. That's factually correct. Maybe this guy does. He's Frank Fowler, and it's time for the SEC scoreboard.
Let's get caught up with all the latest scores and news in the Southeastern Conference.
A lot of stuff to get into.
It's time for the SEC scoreboard with Frank Fowler.
All right, boys, we have our other playoff games, and let's start with the New Year's Six. We're going to go ahead with the Capital One Orange Bowl. Miami will take on, in Miami, number 9 Florida will take on number 24 Virginia. That's going to be on December 30th at 8 p.m. Looking at this matchup, guys, Virginia has a trio of very talented linebackers, including Noah Taylor, who led the ACC in sacks. So how can Florida get their running game on track and avoid any sort of defensive mismatch?
We're heading into Florida's 13th game. What makes you think that Florida has any sort of ability or even commitment to get the running game going?
It's like my wife saying, you know what, you should do sit-ups. If it ain't happening now, it's never going to happen.
Florida uses the short passing game, the quick passing game in lieu of the run game because they don't have the offensive line to do it right now. So I don't think you expect to see anything different. What you'll see is Kyle Trask using his weapons at the wide receiver position, throwing the football. I think the matchup that I'm looking at more so is that defense. Florida's defense is healthy.
Yep.
They've been able to get after the quarterback. 8 sacks against Florida State. What can Bryce Perkins do? Because he's really been a one-man show, not only throwing the football, but he's their leading rusher as well. So I think it's going to be a long night if they don't find some diversification on the side of the Virginia offense.
Go back and look at the ACC championship game where Clemson absolutely destroyed the Cavaliers. So probably one of those situations where I think Todd Grantham's going to have some success.
There's a difference in athletes on the rosters. Much like Clemson and Virginia, disparity there. I think you'll see the same disparity between Florida and Virginia in the Orange Bowl.
Next bowl game. Right?
All right, All-State Sugar Bowl. That's going to be January 1st at 8:45. Jake Rowe of 247 Sports is reporting that Dominic Blaylock tore his ACL in the SEC Championship. So how will UGA's offense function against Baylor now that Cager and Blaylock are both going to be out?
Is this the same thing as last year where they had an opportunity to go to the college football playoff? They don't, and therefore then end up getting, I think, boat raced by Texas. It's another Texas school that is trying to be an up-and-comer. A lot of guys injured. Sam Pittman now going to be leaving. What do you make of that for the Bulldogs?
I think it is another dangerous situation for the Bulldogs. I mean, you're right. Take out Texas, sub in Baylor, and it's the same script. It might be even worse because this is a much more banged-up football team for Georgia than they were last year. What is their interest level in being here? It's almost a little sad for me because the Sugar Bowl used to be the ultimate for this conference.
Sure.
It's not that anymore. In fact, a lot of times they get a team that's disappointed to be there because they had their eyes on a bigger prize being a part of the college football playoffs. So I think the story of the entire bowl season or which teams are most motivated, which ones are most locked in to be there. Right now, if I had to kind of place a wager on it, I would think that Georgia is maybe one of those teams that's not as locked in.
It will be interesting to see if DeAndre Swift plays and, of course, any of those other guys that we think that might go into the NFL. Just kind of an overall theme that you're going to see all throughout the bowl season. Give me another one here.
All right, this one's going to be really interesting. We'll head down to the Academy Sports and Outdoor Texas Bowl. That's going to be December 27th. A&M taking on number 25 Oklahoma State. They're going to be going up against the best running back in the country, guys. Chuba Hubbard led the nation with 1,936 rushing yards. He was also tied for second in the nation with 21 touchdowns.
Yep.
You know, A&M's been good. They've grown a lot on defense, but there's still a lot of young talent. So how can they contain Hubbard in the run?
I'm actually interested to see if he plays, right? I mean, is this a guy that we think is going to be out there? I mean, who knows who to expect to play at this point in time?
You know who I expect to play a lot? A lot of A&M players because they just don't have that many upperclassmen.
Yeah.
Right? And so to me, this is one of those matchup games that I really do like because if Chuba doesn't play, Texas A&M has played so many freshmen and sophomore all year long. I almost look at this bowl game for A&M as the first game of the 2020 season.
You're exactly right. I think this is an opportunity for them to set the tone for 2020 where the schedule gets much more manageable, where you have a lot of more experience because you played so many freshmen and sophomores, and you're playing a ranked team here in Oklahoma State, but they're not a top 10 team. I think it's a favorable matchup for the A&M Aggies, and I think it's one right now that you get the extra 15 practices, and Jimbo Fisher, is going to grind during those practices. He's going to get them ready to play. They're not going to show up and enjoy vacation and all the bowl, things that come along with it. They're going there to win a football game, and I think they're going to be locked in.
That game coming up on December 27th. Frank, give me another bowl game, sir.
Right, another good one here. That's going to be taking place on the 30th is Mississippi State versus Louisville. We just saw Kentucky dominate Louisville by running the ball. How many carries will Kylan Hill get in this game from Mississippi State?
It's interesting because I had Joe Moorhead on the SEC Bowl special, and before I went on air, I'm like, should I even ask you any questions about Kylan Hill? Is he going to play? He goes, Kylan Hill practiced and he is ready to go. And rightfully so, because I imagine Kylan Hill has started to see the film of Kentucky and Louisville where Lynn Bowden Jr. ran for like 785 yards like a PlayStation character. And he goes, I want that stat line going into the NFL draft.
I don't know if Tommy Stevens is healthy or it'll be Garrett Trader at the quarterback position, but you talk about those two guys looking at the film and seeing the success Lynn Bowden had with the quarterback run game, coupled with a guy like Kylan Hill, who's the second leading rusher in the conference. He's been able to do it all year long, despite not having a passing game to take some of the pressure off of him. This is the perfect matchup for those guys because Louisville gives up a ton of yards on the ground.
And a huge game for Joe Moorhead, right? Because if he didn't, listen, I don't know if he was going to be back at Starkville had the Egg Bowl turned out differently after the whole Elijah Moore situation. He is, and to make sure he gets his first postseason win would be monstrous for this program.
He is not going to allow his team to go there and have too much fun.
And he sounded fired up whenever we talked to him about it yesterday.
No
All right, continue to go on here, Frank.
Yeah, VRBO Citrus Bowl, number 13 Alabama versus number 14 Michigan should be a really good game. How does Alabama's defense match up against Shea Patterson and the Michigan efficient offense, who has definitely improved this year in terms of their output?
They have improved since that second half of the Penn State game. They've definitely been more dialed in. They have explosiveness. But at the same time, I'm worried about who we're going to see playing for Alabama. That's the key that we've never – this is uncharted territory for the Crimson Tide because they've been in the college football playoffs every year that they've had it, and now all of a sudden they're not. How dialed in, how many guys are they going to have missing that decide not to play?
I think they'll have guys. I think they'll have guys missing, right? Guys that'll play in the NFL on the next level. I think they're going to be completely dialed in. For me, this is the biggest Bama Bowl game that's not a national championship opportunity in maybe a decade. Simply for the fact of, you think about it, the last 3 times Alabama has faced a top 25 team, they're 0-3. 0-3. They cannot afford to go 0-4, right? They don't want to have this talk about, hey, ding dong, the witch is dead, the dynasty is dead. They will be dialed into this game, and I cannot wait because I think they absolutely destroy the Michigan Wolverines.
Our producer, GR3, made a good point that, hey, because Mac Jones is at the quarterback spot, this actually might be a good thing because he's going to be involved in a quarterback battle next year. Assuming Tua's not coming back, he's going to be battling Tua's little brother. There's going to be some offensive focus on that side of the ball because of Mac Jones.
Let's continue to roll on rapid fire before we get into Richard Cross here talking about Ole Miss. What do we got?
Yeah, Belk Bowl, last one ever. Going to be sad. Going to miss that Twitter account. Kentucky versus Virginia, December 31st at noon. Assuming Lynn Bowden plays, do you expect UK to continue their success rushing the ball against a Virginia Tech team that ranks 27th nationally in fewest rushing yards allowed per game?
Why would we not? Maybe.
You know what we're going to do? We're going to run the ball with that guy.
And you can't
Can you stop it? You can't.
But I do think the dynamic's interesting. Bud Foster in his final season with Virginia Tech against this offense that you talk about defining one-dimensionality, that they're a one-dimensional offense that you know what's coming, as you mentioned, but you can't stop it. I'm interested to see the plan for Virginia Tech on how they slow down this Kentucky offense.
It'd be huge for Mark Stoops because we've talked so much about, kind of outside of Ed Ogeron, maybe the coach of the year for the job that he's done. But he's able to get this win and get 8 wins after losing Terry Wilson in the talent. All of a sudden, the quote-unquote floor of what was looked at as a bad Kentucky season is now 8 wins. Yeah. That's great for everything in Lexington. All right, is that all of them? I feel like we got two more.
Two more. We'll go real quickly here. Outback Bowl, number 12 Auburn versus number 18 Minnesota. Minnesota, obviously an all-around talented team, present a challenge to Auburn. What's the one thing Auburn absolutely has to do to win this game?
Row the dang boat, or at least stop the boat. Put holes in the boat. What do? I'll be an iceberg to their rowboat.
Is the leading passer in the Big Ten. But I don't think he's played against a defense like this that's built the way that Auburn's is. Now, again, I think we have to figure out who's going to play for Auburn. But
I know who he is going to play. Bo Nix.
Bo Nix is going to play, and Bo Nix is going to be a guy that's highly motivated to play. He's coming off the biggest win in his short career so far in Auburn, and so I think this will be one that you'll see Auburn. They weren't locked in a couple years ago against UCF, but I think they'll be locked in for this one against Minnesota.
They were locked in last year against Purdue. Remember?
Yeah.
They wanted to put up half a
They put up
100.
49 in the first half.
And it looked like they could have scored 100. We saw Gus Malzahn in Atlanta for the SEC championship game. Talk about a guy that was just enjoying
He
life.
looks as laid back as I've ever seen him, right? Having a good time there. Out on the recruiting trail after making an appearance on CBS before the game.
And you go back and look, Bo Nix beat Oregon, beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, an opportunity to beat a team and they think is up and coming in Minnesota.
Yeah.
That'd be another feather in his cap for the Auburn Tigers. One more bowl game to go.
Yes, Gator Bowl, January 2nd, Tennessee versus Indiana. Indiana, guys, this is not your typical Indiana team. They've averaged 32.6 points per game, and they got a pretty solid quarterback in Peyton Ramsey, who threw for 2,227 yards this year. Is this game going to be a shootout, or will Tennessee's young playmakers on defense continue to get better and shut out Indiana?
Just like I thought we'd have on SEC this morning, this is not your mother's Indiana Hoosier football team. But Tom Allen done a great job on the offensive side, and I just want Tennessee to get 8 wins after starting 0-2.
This is an important bowl game for Jeremy Pruitt. Again, like we said about Jimbo, an opportunity to set the tone for next season. I actually believe, and I believe this year too, but I believe that Tennessee has a chance to compete in the East in 2020. This is an opportunity for them to set that tone, continue to take the next step forward. And of all the teams, I think, in this league that are feeling gratitude this time of year for being in a postseason game, it's Tennessee based upon where they come from. I don't think they waste this opportunity.
Tax Layer Gator Bowl, that one coming up on January the 2nd there in Jacksonville. All right, we head down to the state of Mississippi. Lane Train has showed up. Richard Cross, SEC Network play-by-play commentator, gives us a look at the Rebels going forward to 2020. As always, you can tweet the show using the hashtag SEC This Morning.